It's just so crazy. So crazy the world that we live in and everything else. So sad. You know why it's so sad though, Jolyn?
Why?
Because we're live.
That's sad.
No, it's not sad. It's amazing.
Yo.
What's this? Like, you gotta let us know what the ensemble going on. Like, we see that you got your hair did. You got the red lipstick that goes with it, the eyewear, and on top of that, the jacket. Like,
well, I was feeling like I was in a war. Like,
oh, with who?
With this market.
Oh my God!
I had to suit up. I had to arm up and suit up, and like legit, this hair is just the reversal of whatever I had Tuesday. Like I literally it was this way, and I put it this side. Versatile. You got to be nimble, flexible, agile.
All right. Well, you definitely have the words that ultimately go with it. But guess what though?
What's up?
Reggie is no longer the first cousin to today's live or to our live. Reggie, we see you coming in at a smooth fourth.
Okay, here we go.
What is going on? Yo, you hear that? Like, I think I hear spirits or something. Like, yo, somebody go get some sage immediately. All right, so what's up, everybody? I'm Mark Monroe, and I am accompanied by my wonderful co-host, co-producer, and good friend, the wonderful
GC in the place to be. What does it, cousins?
And this is Hot Take Thursday, a show in which that I do not know what Jolyn is going to ask me, but I will definitely be 10 toes down and ready for anything in which that she can throw at me. And I'm probably sure that even more questions will come about. And I am supposed to answer them straight off of the top of the dome to give you my honest first impression, reaction, as well as information and knowledge to what I understand on a particular subject. So, Jolyn, first off, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Haitian Pete, who is number one today on today's chat. So it's interesting though, because when everybody comes in, I'm noticing that everybody's just throwing up letters. What do the letters mean?
They're just trying to put a letter down so that they could be the first.
So it's like everybody just like staking their claim.
Mm-hmm. But if y'all were really cool, you would try and spell out a word with each other.
Oh, that would be super duper dope if they were able to actually coordinate that somehow, some way. Mm-hmm. Like, now, next they're going to be plotting.
But it's like you don't know who's going to hit the button first. So,
yeah, next thing you know, it's like, who knows? That's crazy. I'm just thinking about like what word would be spelled. And no, it can't be a stock ticker because that's just too easy.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should have an investment word of the day that people have to try and spell out in the beginning. But the first person would have to lead the charge, though.
Interesting. Well, I'm here for it. Well, what's up, everybody? If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. If you like the video, go ahead and hit the like button because apparently it opens up YouTube's algorithm so that way other people can see it. And on top of that, if you want to be a part of the Cool Kids Club, aka the notification squad, so that way when there's a new video coming out, go ahead and hit that bell. And that way you can be like everybody else, straight up lit in the chat, in which that I will get to read later on. But if you are coming from somewhere, like go ahead and throw it up in the chat. I always love to see that, like where is it that people are coming from? And also where do you happen to be watching currently? So go ahead and throw that up in the chat so that way we can know. All right, Jolyn, I made sure that I did that part last.
Haitian Pete.
Huh?
I didn't say hi to Haitian Pete. Hey, Haitian Pete. I didn't acknowledge him. But you know what? I went back and I listened in the very beginning of the last episode. So I did hear you say it. Like it was confirmed. But it just went by. And now
I think I went so fast through it.
Yeah. And also I be trying to like share on the different, platforms. So,
We got somebody coming in from Munster, Indiana.
Oh, nice.
Trinidad.
Okay.
Okay. Winston-Salem, Philly, South Carolina. Bed-Stuy. Okay. London here, fam. I see you. I see you. Covington, Georgia. We got some Louisiana. Oh, guess what? We got somebody coming all the way from the Sept.
Really?
Do you know where that's from?
No.
M-I, cricket letter I, cricket letter I, hump your
Mississippi. I'm
back, hump your
sorry.
back,
I
I.
was thinking of something else. My bad. That's why I was like, no. I was thinking of something else.
Okay. All right.
My bad. Yo, that's nice.
Rhodesia Island. Oh, wow. That's.
Wow. Okay.
No, Tibet. Oh, whoa.
Nice.
Oh, it's Monk.
Nice.
All right. We got some history today.
I have some history. And actually it's something that we didn't get to read back on May 5th.
Oh, word. Okay.
Yeah. So hold on, let me get my little notes together. All right. Sorry, I was kind of caught off guard. What's up, y'all? It's Jolyn GC in the place to be. And I'm really pumped for Hot Take Thursday because y'all had a lot of different questions. Many of them, I will put this on the record, Mark. Many of those questions are for Trade Talk Tuesday. They're like super technical, but we're going to get through as many as we can. So yeah. And a lot of them, people are on the same wavelength. A lot of them are duplicates. So it's all good. Now, the Dow was at 188.11 points. S&P 500 was at 43.44 points. And the Nasdaq, with that act right, was at 236 points. The VIX was 20.67 points. And the 10-year Treasury note was at 1.63%. Hold on. Now, for sector performance, as you know, there are 11 sectors. We track the top 3 and the bottom 3 so we can see what that sector rotation looking like. And we have technology coming in, swinging hard, number 1. About time, okay?
It's been a minute. It's been
more than a minute. It's been a long minute. And then we got communication services and real estate in the top 3. Then for the bottom 3, we have financials, materials, and energy was the only one that was red today in the negative. So, and it's all the way.
Were any of them? I wonder if any of them were above 1%.
Oh, well, you ain't said nothing but a word. We just look that up right quick. Let's see. Which one do you think was at more than 1%?
If I had to, I would say, I would probably give it to materials.
Materials
or industrials, or it's either materials or industrials that I would give up 1% or close to it.
That went up 1%?
Yeah.
No, the one that went up 1%.
Do not say financials.
No, it's health.
Oh, well, yeah.
Health increased by 1.04%. Consumer discretionary almost, it was 0.95%. But energy was down negative 12%. That as far as like the change goes. And financials, like barely a dime. Like
there we go.
Barely.
They're returning back
technology. Yeah, technology was up 1.87% though.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Shout out to Enphase Energy though. I think that kind of held everything together because I think they were up like 8% today.
They were, let me look at Enphase. I just got like all these alerts earlier today about Enphase. Oh yeah, 8.5%, a little over 8.5%. Doing it, okay. So now for our pick performance, you can find all the Come Up Series picks, aka SIPs, on our Instagram page at That Come Up Series. We got Essie coming in at number 1, CRISPR coming in at number 2, and then Twilio. Those are the top 3. The bottom 3 would be Nike and JP Morgan and TBT at the bottom with JP Morgan and TBT were red. So that's interesting. That's very interesting because if you all know, those are 2 defensive plays now, JP Morgan and TBT, and now they're at the bottom. And not only are they at the bottom, they are red. The only 2 that are red. And then you got the sector rotation, as we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So got to pay attention to those things. That's why we call them out. And shout out to you, Mark. FTNT is hit a 52-week high, and Target hit a 52-week high. So there you go with that.
And FTNT was a defensive play, just as a heads up.
Well, that one has, if you had, who, put it in the chat, who has FTNT?
Yo,
Because
if you played FTNT, go ahead and I definitely want to see you in the chat.
Yeah,
like if you were in FTNT, yo, you need to buy yourself a 5-gallon thing of water and just literally just let's go.
Yeah, for real. All day. All right, so we're gonna take it back in time. Well, I mean, obviously we always take it back in time for the history. But what I mean is this history is actually related to something that we didn't have time to cover. So, you know, on SNL, how they say it was cut for time. So this was cut for time. So we just gonna put that in there so that we can have a complete May. So let me see. Let me make sure I didn't read this though. Okay. Adam Clayton Powell Sr. was born on May 5th, 1865, and he was born in Franklin County, Virginia. Reverend Powell was the pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, New York, and under his leadership, the church grew to have the largest Protestant congregation in the United States with 10,000 members. Powell was one of the founders of the National Urban League and the father of Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who followed him as the pastor of the Abyssinian Baptist Church. His son, Adam Powell Jr., was also a United States congressman who represented Harlem for 12 terms. So what's interesting about that piece is we see how our ancestors were heavily well, not heavily, but like there was representation when it comes to like the political side. And it just seems now things are, you know, politically shifting. I don't want to get too much into politics, but it just seems like back in the day, you know, I guess after segregation, it's like we moved away from like the economic platform to this political one. And I question, you know, how good was that for us? And what would things be like if we would have just stayed on that economic platform, like period, if we would have just kept, you know, building and all that. So anyway, for those historians that are interested in that, you know, hit me up. I would love to chat more about that. All right. So Mark, we got some questions. And we may have a game or two. I don't know. It depends on how these questions go. So
we're gonna play a game.
We might. I don't know. It depends. We'll see. We'll see what these questions are doing. All right. So are you ready? Let me get my script right now. Okay, you ready. Okay. Here we go. On your mark. No pun intended. Get set. All right, here we go. Cryptocurrency margin call in China. Go.
Unfortunate situation, but ultimately it was definitely bound to happen. Stay tuned because there potentially could be a little bit more short-term pain ahead.
All right. On that same vein, how is crypto affecting the stock market?
I think that if anything, when you pull liquidity from one source, it is able to be moving into another asset class. Like, for example, things like we saw gold have a small little rally. And then on top of that, it also takes profit from those sectors and allows even for places to be like, for example, technology. So essentially where people step out of one asset class, they go somewhere else.
All right, here we go. Tesla begins to accept Dogecoin. Would you buy the cryptocurrency?
No, I would not. I mean, I still haven't even bought any of the Dogecoin at all. If anything, I'm still very much so heavy into Ethereum since I started mining well back into the early days, and now just being an investor in it and just holding what I already have. Outside of that, no, I would not. Now, if they accept Ethereum, then that's different, but they have to work on their transaction fees.
All right. AMD share buyback implications.
It's about time.
How much was it? 4 billion? How much did they say?
$4 billion. It was a $4 billion share buyback. So it's letting you know that they're bringing in a nice little substantial revenue, though that they're not there yet as it pertains to dividend. But the fact is that they're showing you that they can actually buy back shares to return value to the shareholders. That's very much so a good thing.
Okay. Let's see. How will crypto volatility affect Tesla and other stocks?
I think volatility can be a good thing. I mean, if you like roller coasters, like I said a long time ago, then ultimately volatility can swing in the right direction. And then on top of that, given where the stock is, that can also play a huge role, especially if you're an options trader like myself. Outside of that, I mean, volatility also produces some uncertainty, but as I've seen recently, the put to call ratio across most of your tech stocks that have been hammered so much has significantly reversed to call, more so majority call to put.
Okay. AMD pop, can we expect more?
AMD what?
AMD pop, can we expect more?
I think so. I think this is now the time in which that we're going to see more good news coming out of AMD. And I think that a lot of folks are starting to wake up and smell the coffee now that earnings is practically done. And a lot of analysts have had the time to sit back and go and chew and look at some of the data and look at the numbers. So I think that they're ultimately going to say, all right, well, maybe it's time for us to start giving AMD a little bit more of a look, especially since it's been oversold.
All right, with credit card debt dropping at alarming rates, what companies are in trouble?
What companies are in trouble?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Visa, MasterCard are not in trouble. I know that companies like, for example, like Capital One, they're definitely in good shape. So honestly, I wouldn't have any worries about credit card companies as well. American Express, maybe, but I mean, yeah.
Okay. So as inflation has been a hot topic, will big institutions wait until 2022 to rotate into tech?
No, I think that they'll silently start rotating into tech. I think that you're already starting to see a little bit of that, though that they're not as so quick to just jump into going risk on, especially since you still have the looming inflation and bond yields sitting there. But as long as the Fed stays tried and true to what they say and continues, I guess, their dovish pretty much tone, I think that pretty much it gives investors reason to say, all right, well, maybe we should, keep adding tech to our position, especially since a lot of valuations have ultimately been somewhat corrected, as well as a lot of companies getting back to somewhat fair value. So that's where that would be my assumption.
All right, central banks and cryptocurrency, what are your take on them building their own digital currencies?
Very much so a real thing, especially if you look at USDC, US dollar coin. I have to give credit to where credit is due because Terry Igioma was the person that actually spoke on that first. And so I think that could be very much so a real thing. And I would say that it's not just them. I think it's other countries that are looking to do the same thing. So I would say that that's very much so that's a reality on the horizon.
Okay. If the market isn't trading on fundamentals, how do you know what news is baked in?
So when it comes down to the earnings, and then when you take into consideration when the thesis is playing out from what you know or from the information that is already there, now you have to look at essentially what is not there. What is it that you don't hear about in earnings? What is it that you don't hear in the guidance? And of course, you know that that's on the horizon. But if it's not there, then ultimately, I mean, it's not going to impact this. It's going to impact the stock, whether good or bad. I think the biggest thing to look at is, especially when you look at it throughout in a 365-day or 52-week calendar, the market typically trades not only just on fundamentals. Fundamentals ultimately leads people there, but it doesn't sustain them through. What sustains them through for the majority part of the year is more so speculation as well as technical analysis, and where is it that people are finding decent entries based upon where they place the value of the company or where they see the value going, and are they getting in ahead of that valuation or are they right at valuation value?
Okay, so with this recent Bitcoin crash of sorts, how will it affect Tesla's earnings this quarter?
Depends upon where the value of Bitcoin ends, especially by the end of the quarter. As long as Tesla's holding their position and if they haven't offloaded anything, then they technically didn't take a loss. That's the first thing. The second thing to look into that is, well, if Bitcoin is down, then essentially, yes, that can impact, say, for example, your cash position. But outside of that, again, it's like, we've seen, I think Bitcoin crashed like 9 times. And since then, it's like kind of like risen from the dead, like the Undertaker, and gone to new highs. So honestly, I don't have any worries about that. And I think that it's the real institutional money. I don't think that they're going to really care about that. They understand that that's part of the process of investing in such a cryptocurrency.
Okay. We're gonna take a pause in these questions to play a game.
Ha! Ha! Yeah. Let's go.
So this is based off of
I like games.
Okay, this is based off of the pick list. From time to time, we do this, right? Where it's like first thoughts that come to mind when I say this company, okay?
Okay.
And here we go. SE.
Sleeping or sleeper.
CRSP.
Needs more time.
TWLO.
Undervalued.
DDOG.
Fair valued.
ROKU.
Gentle giant.
TSLA.
Goat.
TAN.
Say that again.
TAN.
Needs validation.
Okay, TTWO, that's from Tebow.
Lord. Activision.
Okay. Sorry, Tebow, that's all you did.
ATVI. That's
all right. LRCX.
Well done.
NVDA.
Say that again.
NVDA.
Oh, the hype is real.
ZS.
Scared.
All right. ARKK.
Don't be scared.
All right. CWEB.
Oh, storm coming in a good way.
Okay. TDOC.
Set the bench.
DOCU.
Set the bench.
Damn. Okay. SMPS.
What?
SMPS.
Too soon.
NFLX.
Keep doing your thing.
Okay. That's your clue for the next one.
Okay.
That's the clue.
Did you call another one?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear you.
I just did it.
Oh.
SMH.
Let's go.
What'd you say?
Let's go. I think that 2 months, 2-month countdown begins to the party.
All right. If y'all didn't catch that, that was SMD shaking my head. Okay, SMD.
You mean
All
SMH?
Right. SMH. Sorry, I'm about to go with AMD. That's why AMD's next.
Okay. Don't believe me, just watch.
All right. SQ.
Ooh. Winter is coming.
All right. I'm gonna switch it up now and make this harder, Mark. Okay, so now I'm gonna say the ticker symbol, and you have to give a song title that goes with this ticker symbol of how you feel about this ticker symbol, all right?
Oh my gosh, because Jolyn knows I'm like a musical jukebox.
All right, so here we go. Y'all feel free to create a playlist from this. We got ADBE.
Adobe?
Yes.
21 by her.
Okay. FTNT.
Ooh. TN, higher ground by TNGHT. I think it's tonight.
All right. FDN.
Ooh, man. Let's see. 0 to 100 by Drake.
All right. AAPL.
Shining Star by Earth, Wind, and Fire.
All right. Last one. BABA. Well, for the music portion.
Oof. So Alibaba. Get Low by Lil Jon in the East. In the Yin.
Lord. Okay, so now for this last batch of the SIPs. Now, what are your thoughts on these last companies as we head into Quad Witch? All right.
Okay.
Here we go. MA.
So what am I supposed to do again?
So you basically just tell us what your thoughts are on these ticker symbols, but
Okay.
like in the context of Quad Witch.
Okay.
Quad Witch. So
okay.
ticker symbol MA.
MasterCard. I think that ultimately, alongside with tech, it should be fine. But keep in mind, it was a defensive play. So don't be surprised if investors want to take a little bit of profit.
Okay. SDGR.
SDGR has been beaten up significantly, but people just don't know what it really brings to the table on the fundamental side. But at the same token, I still believe in SDGR significantly, a lot of conviction there. So I would say, there may be some volatility here, but, I wouldn't be surprised if this stock also starts to rebound just by a little bit, also going into the second half.
Okay, BA.
Boeing has been doing okay. They're back into, conjunction, no bad news has been had. And of course, everybody's very anticipatory of things getting back to normal. So I would say going into Quad Witch, I would say, given them how it's performed a little bit though, I would say just, be on the lookout for any potential profit taking because they still have a lot of validation that they need to do on the side of what the FAA and so many different issues. But just for Quad Witching, it's had a great run over this past quarter. Now the question is, can they prove that in next quarter's earnings? So I think that's where investors are going to start positioning who's going to perform well.
Okay, MSFT.
There's certain things that I just don't bet against, and that's one of them. If you don't want to bet against Tom Brady when he was a Patriot, but some folks don't want to bet against him when he's a Buck. So I will say this, that's just one of the ones that I just don't bet against. Microsoft has too many weapons in his belt. So honestly, I believe that you're going to see some buyers stepping in for Microsoft come quadruple witching.
All right, TGT.
Target, I think that they're definitely still a recovery stock to definitely play. And I think that the rest of the market sees that. And I think that they're going to just continue to keep buying up Target. No, it will take a break though.
Okay, DIS.
Disney, man. Yo. You try to get me in trouble with the little one, but no, I think that Disney could potentially recover. I think that Disney has a stand as the stock to recover. I don't think that the thesis is 100% thrown out. I think that honestly, there's some things that they need to resolve. And of course, they have some significant movie titles coming down the pipeline. So I wouldn't be surprised if investors are looking to position themselves back into a Disney.
All right, V.
Visa, same thing in what I said for MasterCard. Okay. Those two companies typically move in tandem with each other.
All right, TSN.
As we start to move forward, and like I said, these next 2 months are going to be crucial, though that there is starting to see some rumblings of competition, though that we hear from IBM, but then TSM came out with something about them potentially getting to 1 nanometer. That could be huge. The question is, when can it become available? So I would say, honestly, you're starting to see a little bit of rebound going back into the stock, but overall, come Quad Witch, it's like, you may see some volume stepping in. I think a lot of the players in which that have been beaten up significantly, you're going to start seeing some volume going back into those.
Okay. What about HD?
Home Depot is going on a huge run. And I think that the thing is, so if you want to know more about Home Depot, look at the speculation as it pertains to lumber on the material side. Those two have been trading very much so in tandem with each other. So as lumber was high, so too was that leading up Home Depot because of the fact that there was a lot of folks buying it. But at the same token, as lumber drops, then ultimately you start to see the value of, say, for example, Home Depot start to potentially take a tumble. I know that that's one of Kiki's favorite stocks. I'm not saying that the stock is completely broken or the company thesis is broken. I just think that honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if people are profit taking from Home Depot.
All right, XPO.
XPO Logistics, it's hard to bet against XPO, especially given that there's Big Cousin Q, and especially if we believe that there's a huge amount of industrial work to take place, especially on the logistics side. So honestly, I think that there's still some more upside going into XPO Logistics.
All right, NKE.
Nike, I like that. I think that, the biggest thing is that Nike is really predicated on things going back to normal and supply chains getting a little bit better. I think that that's one of the biggest things that could be potentially plaguing them. Outside of that, I mean, I see that there's nothing hurt about the stock at all. I think that honestly that there's nothing but upside ahead for Nike, especially as we go for the second half of the year where we go into the holiday. I think that that's definitely an advantage Nike.
All right, JPM.
JP Morgan. It's funny because I think Jamie Dimon was like doing a talk the other day with other institutional banks, and honestly, it's like where they're positioning themselves, especially in the crypto craze of things. I think that JP Morgan will stand to benefit heavily, especially as we start getting into more cryptocurrency futures trading. I think that if you have to look at some of the best institutional banks out there when it comes to trading, look no further than JP Morgan.
All right, and final one, TBT.
TBT, well, that's something to watch as it pertains to interest rates. As we start to see that interest rates ultimately start to come down, then that could also hurt TBT. But if we see that inflation continue, this conversation of inflation is here to stay, then you could be seeing TBT go a little bit higher as rates climb or yields climb. So that's something that's kind of like, okay, hey, I'm 50-50 on going into quadruple witching. Though my perspective is, I think that honestly, we may be possibly seeing a little bit more upside in TBT in the short term, and then essentially it's going to come back down to correct. So about, my guess is about 19.
All right. Thank you for that. So I'm cracking up the comments because people are putting their songs in for the different ticker symbols, and it's hilarious. I'm going to have to go back and watch it just so I can crack up.
Yeah.
All right. So getting to the questions that were submitted earlier to my IG stories. If you all have questions, do not DM them to me because I won't get them. But instead, if you see the story asking for what questions you have, then submit it that way because I will see it for sure.
That's fair.
All right, here we go. Thoughts on Robinhood's IPO share access for retail?
I think that's good. I mean, most brokerages actually allow you to have access to pre-IPOs. So essentially, like before it becomes live, they give you access to specific IPO companies, especially the ones that are not going direct listing but are doing like the IPO roadshows. Just let me run it back for everybody. Normally when a company goes public, they can either go direct listing, they can go SPAC, or they can just go the standard way of IPO, which means that they go on a roadshow speaking to other institutional money. So that way, essentially, it's like they know that they can kind of like have designated buyers that ultimately that want to buy the stock. So for the most part, I think that that's a good thing. Is just make sure that they're consistent. So that way, when on IPO day is for sure, when the company actually goes public, that there are no hiccups or nobody has any loss of, purchases or, money. So if they can do that and actually get that right, then, great, good for them.
All right. So this is a segment I like to call "What You Got Going On?" And this is in relation to your Twitter account. We have some questions about some of the tweets you tweeted. So Mark, when it comes to those percentages and those numbers that you were tweeting earlier, the question is, what you got going on?
I have a lot of things cooking.
Okay, so say more.
Mind you, I got many things to manage over here. I'm like an active portfolio manager these days.
Well, typically, when people are questioning about what you said about like the options pricing moves for SPY.
Oh, like where I said, like SPY options are pricing about a 2% move plus or minus. So yeah, so a lot of these things are pricing in. So as we get closer towards FUD, which I mean, a lot of these, you know, there's a lot of volatility, there's a lot of volume that goes through. So you have, you know, pretty much folks from the traders side of thing, where you look at the options chain and you look at the open interest versus volume, also with implied volatility. And then that can kind of give you somewhat of a good gauge as it pertains to where is it that they see it. So, and then on top of that, when you just look at the strike prices and where they're being bought, you're starting to see that, you know, there's a lot of interest in these areas. And so that's where they're starting to put it together. Luckily for me, I felt like sharing that since, you know, do have some access to some AI data, and why not go ahead and share it with the people at no charge. So let's democratize this information by making sure that the information is available to all.
Totally. Okay, so now, sorry, this comment is inappropriate. Not like that, but it's just, it's hilarious. It has nothing to do with the show. All right. Here we go. Oh, here's a request. This is a request, Mark. The request is, can you go over the fundamentals of a company again? Like, what are the main lines to focus on?
It's actually funny because I'm going to actually decline that one, because pretty soon I'm going to actually have a guest coming to the Come Up series, and whom which that is going to do more of that in depth. In the next few weeks, we're going to have another cookout session, and maybe even potentially a few more cookouts where we can discuss that more so in depth for the people. So I don't want to step on any toes. So I'm going to have to, you know, reserve the right to plead the fifth there.
All right. But what you can do for that person that asked that question, you can go to the starter pack, and I believe it's the first or second video of the starter pack on our YouTube channel's playlist. And it talks all about fundamentals and what you should cover. So that is a great spot to check out before we get into the cookout guests that will go further into that. Okay. So here we go. TDOC Correction.
So TDOC Correction, I think that this is growing into something a little bit more than which that, honestly, you know, I kind of saw this on the horizon, but I didn't think that, I thought that TDOC would be able to weather the storm a little bit better than this. But at the same token, I'm going to just go out and flat out and say it. TDOC needs to have a better acquisition. They need to actually have something in which that gives it some more legs. The Livongo deal, it was a good deal, but it wasn't like the, you know, good deal. And then especially as we're moving on from COVID-19, you know, TDOC starts to be a little bit more of a liability, more so than, say, for example, you know, an actual asset. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that, you know, a lot of investors, there was a lot of sentiment there as it pertains to folks having access to a doctor or, you know, some type of psychiatrist or whatever you may have. And it was going through, and they were embedding themselves very much so across different systems. But the problem is that there also started to show up other competitors. Now, of course, for those in whom which that know, it is no secret that I'm also invested into a company that is very much so using telemedicine within its own platform, as well as, you know, doing some other groundbreaking things that build on top of that. And that creates a huge amount of competition for, say, for example, TDOC. So, you know, if TDOC gladly wants to, if you want to acquire Ford, go ahead. And I'm sure that that would be a dope acquisition. But I just don't think that they'll do it. But yeah, so I think that that's the biggest thing, is that you're starting to see other players in the space that are doing just as much or just as exceedingly well as Teladoc with the growth. And I think that that's actually putting some challenges there.
All right. Shout out to Tebow, aka Father Time. The video that you want to Google for a review on fundamentals is called School Spirit. And you can just jump ahead to the 9-minute 33-second mark for those the breakdown of fundamentals, the brief overview. All right. Up next, we got, oh wait, these are all brand new. Hold on, I lost my spot. All right, here's the question. So remember on Tuesday we were talking about averaging down, and I said I don't average down.
Yes.
It's just, it's really not my style. So the question is, if you are going to average down, what should you consider when averaging down on a position? That's
a good question. So it depends upon where you're at and as it pertains to timeline within the position. So if there's still more time for growth, that's a good thing. And especially if everything is still intact for the position. This more so helps when you're playing longer term positions, because especially if you feel like you paid at a higher price premium, but yet at the same token, you still see that there's opportunity for the stock or for the strike to essentially be met before its expiration period. That's when you start to look at strategically and say, hey, I can average down the costs. So that way, essentially, one, I can get more contract flow, so more inflows there, but at the same token, increase my earning potential, especially on the position since I'm coming in at the lower. Because a lot of folks try to time positions very specifically, especially on the entry for options trades. And then essentially it's like when you get out on the exits, it's like, all right, well, you know where you're getting out on the exit. So a beautiful thing about that is if you're not that good at timing a position, that's where actually averaging down actually helps you. Because if you bought in, let's say you bought a contract at $10 a contract, and then the contract drops all the way down, or the premium drops all the way down to, let's say, $6.50, but you know it's going to go back up and essentially still do its thing. You can average the position down by essentially adding more to the contract flow or adding more inflow to your contracts, and then essentially like let the position go up. I always say, though, have a cutoff period for when you actually average down. You don't just average down, just to average down because it's at its low. You need to have a cutoff period to say that, okay, hey, I'm going to average down over this period of time, and this is how much I'm going to allocate towards this averaging down. And then once you get to that point, actually at that point, it's cut it. Let the discipline take over and let the position do its thing. That's good that you said that, because if I did average down, and this is because I don't average down, but if I did, then the timing definitely would play a big factor into it. And then also, if this was a liquidity play, then I might be more prone to average down, but I wouldn't average down on a leverage play. That's just my own, that's how I do it. But also, another thing is, if you have a strike that is way out there, then I also wouldn't average down on that either. Like if your strike is way out there and you're coming up on, like you have some time, but it's not all the time in the world, but you have some time left. It's almost like either you're going to roll it back to a whole new strike, a strike that's closer to the money, and take part of that loss, or, because you would pay more for the strike that was closer to the money, or just cut your losses. That's how I see it. All right. And that was as much information as we can give. This person had a very specific place, so I just left that part out. But okay, that's the general. All right, so up next, people want to talk about Apple's 2 events later this year. What are you excited about? So I think that I'm excited about, from what I'm gathering, I think we may be hearing a one more thing. Yeah, and I'm guessing that, especially now that we've seen Snap introduce its new glasses or spectacles. And the fact that we've seen Facebook do its thing, and other players stepping into that space, I think it's now time for Apple, given that they've been able to knock out, a lot of the headway for it. And you can just see it within its, when you can see it within its patents, and its patent filings. It's time for those glasses.
Okay.
It's time. The market needs it, the market wants it, and I think that it's time, if we're talking about the next generation, of where is it that we're going. So that's one thing, because I think that there's only so many more iterations in which that you can do within the product, in which that now it's like, all right, it's time that we see a new product. Another thing is that I want to see how they're like really looking to bring forth into the education, as well as, more so that transition from traditional devices and, going with the things that were once considered unconventional to now they start to become traditional, like the iPad will start to really, you're starting to see the iPad really start to compete against the MacBook device as a primary driver for folks versus actually going out there to buy a MacBook. So I would like to see exactly, where is that they're going also within their software, to see how is that they're making changes and making waves there as well.
Okay. So along that vein as well, someone was asking about your thoughts on Microsoft in the gaming space, in particular AR, VR.
Huge. It's amazing that, they haven't really, taken out, they haven't really done anything significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for me, it's like, I understand that they have the, the HoloLens, but that's more so focused towards defense as well as health. One of the interesting sleepers that a lot of folks aren't paying attention to is the fact that Microsoft is working on a project in which that you can run Windows through the cloud. That's huge. Nobody's talking about it. So I was like, you know what? I got tired of nobody talking about it, so I'll bring it up. So there you have it. That's one of your hot takes there. Microsoft bringing Windows to the cloud infrastructure is very much so huge, especially, just think about all those future traders out there that use NinjaTrader, that use Mac, as well as for other things in which that, for example, you don't have access to those things, especially on now that, it's kind of hard to install Windows on the new MacBook machines. So now you can just run it through the cloud. So now you're creating virtual workspaces through the cloud space. And that's kind of like Microsoft Office 365, which is kind of like taking us to the next generation of that. And then on top of that, it's like, what they're doing with Xbox Game Pass. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there, especially through gaming, since they now allow you to do it through your phones and tablets across iOS and Android. So I think that, honestly, it's like, it's a possibility. But again, you have to work on like the part as pertains to motion sickness. And then on top of that, make sure that the tech is there. And on top of that, you have to have a strong developer community that wants to build on that and then also feel like they're supported there. That's one of the main reasons why when you see new products that come out, like it takes so long for new products to come out or new services to come out, is because of the fact that if the service is not there to be supported by developers, or developers just don't want to build on it, you can have a great infrastructure, but a great infrastructure is nothing without, any of the actual infrastructure that goes in.
This is a question that has nothing to do with that, kind of switching gears a little bit. Is it better to trade in a Roth IRA versus a brokerage account for your walk away? Not tax advice.
Yeah, it depends. It's like, I would definitely say that you definitely need to sit down and, talk to, you definitely need to talk to a financial advisor, for that one, just to see if you don't want to have to worry about the tax and the capital gains tax that could be looming. Then definitely that's where trading out of a Roth IRA or even sometimes a traditional is in your best interest, but it also depends upon your income. I would say if you're doing brokerage, that means that you want more flexibility, especially if you're looking to do like, shorter term with a mixture of long term. It just depends upon what your requirements are. So it's never really a one size fits all. So if you're thinking more so tax, preservation, then essentially you go towards the retirement accounts to trade in. if you're thinking more so in the sense of just overall flexibility, then brokerage accounts are ultimately the best ones.
But again, consult a tax advisor for your particular setup. Is it possible June's quad witch action has already happened and we will rally in June to trick retail investors?
We will rally in June to trick retail investors. That's weird, because that sounds like there's an institutional, that sounds like that's an institutional investor or institutional manager that asked that question.
Hey,
Weird. I will say this, a lot of folks like put a lot of heavy stock into June 18th or to any quadruple witching period. And, honestly, it's like putting it into perspective, you do see a lot of volume go through that day, especially going into the close. And sometimes it allows like institutions to like literally be able to hide exactly what they're doing. But you do see the rotation taking place before quadruple witching. You always see that happen. So the weeks leading up to quadruple witching, you'll naturally see that activity take place.
Okay. All right. This question just came in. Well, the side. I think it just came in. Can you talk about how the mining of cryptocurrency? Can you talk about the mining of cryptocurrency and how it affects our planet?
Oh man. Wow. Good question. So when you mine cryptocurrency, for the most part, the traditional way of mining cryptocurrency, you normally buy graphics cards, have a machine, and have an allotted array of graphics cards that ultimately solve math computational problems. And ultimately, over a period of time, you're rewarded for really solving those problems, which is really just, logging everything in the blockchain. So there's that. Then you also have other ones in which that they pretty much buy machines in which that create significant amounts of, say, for example, cryptocurrency hash, which means that you can mine faster without having to buy all the significant amounts of graphics cards. So when it comes to the environment, though, it's like you have to think about what creates, or what systems typically used to run on energy and everything else. You also have to look at a lot of the fossil fuel companies that were literally created, that were once dead in 2009, and then again rose from the dead like the Undertaker to literally, I think I said that twice, rose from the dead like the Undertaker. As you guys can probably see, I'm a huge wrestling fan. And now all of a sudden it's like they're back up and operational, except that they're not doing any type of fossil fuel. What they're doing is they're actually mining cryptocurrency. And the sources in which that they're using to mine cryptocurrency is actually dangerous, very much so, for the environment, which is one of the reasons why Elon Musk said, hey, this is something that we don't really agree with. This is something that we definitely don't agree with because it's not a part of our mission. And so essentially we don't want to give them any credit to, what they're doing, and then also be a part of it. And then later people come out and say, hey, you supported this. So it's really, they got ahead of it. And so I think that that's where it comes into play, where it's like you're looking for, that's why Tesla is probably looking at Doge, because of the fact of what it takes to create Doge and everything else. The system is different. So that's where I would probably say, as it pertains to the mining of cryptocurrency, it's not more so in the sense of really like for the majority of folks and how it's mined, but more so from the folks in whom which that came from different industries and how is it they mine and the money that's coming into their system. And of course, it's like you now play a role into that because of the fact of its meteoric rise.
Okay. All right, this question has been asked. All right, there's a question on chips. TSM 1 nanometer chip breakthrough. And we already answered the other part of the question, which is about AMD stock buyback.
So TSM chip, I mean, that's amazing because of the fact that they become much more efficient in the process. And when we talk about efficiency, we're not just talking about power and performance, we're also talking about cost. Mm-hmm. So, something like that, you definitely want to keep in mind. I would say, and what we can see from the 1 nanometer process, because we still have yet to get to the 3, and we're kind of like we're getting ready to see that with me. I don't know if we'll see that in Zen 3, but maybe Zen 4 chips in AMD, and some of the other major players. But I think that what we're going to see probably 1 nanometer, that's probably going to be 2023, 2024. I could be wrong. There could be other players, especially since you have Apple as TSM's #1 customer. So it could make sense. And if you're at a 1 nanometer process, I mean, honestly, just think about, the type of things in which that they can create, especially when we talk about wearables and other types of alternative wearable devices. So sky's the limit there for TSM.
All right. So in our last 3 minutes or so, the question is this bounce for real? That's the question. And that's what a few of the questions are asking in various ways, but that question right there is the gist. Is this bounce for the real?
I think that this bounce is starting to show you that it is somewhat for real. Yeah. I would say, definitely watch the futures market this evening just to get a good gauge to see how things, pretty much play out. Preferably, I don't really watch the Dow futures, but I definitely watch the S&P, the ES, and the NQ.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know how to trade futures. Let's see, for the most part, really, it comes down into perspective of have we reached some levels in which that ultimately that there's enough buyers that want to step in. That's the first part. Technical, have a lot of the stocks that have been beaten up, are they within range as it pertains to fair value? So like one of the stocks that I was watching very closely was a company like AMD. I definitely want everybody to check out a website, and I guess I may just drop it up or probably go to the site for everybody. It's called simplywall.street, and that's ST. It's a very good site in which that you can use to essentially, pretty much get a good gauge as it pertains to looking at different parts of the financial model. Let me see.
I actually like this site a lot.
Huh?
I like this site.
Okay, so I'll show it here for a second. So here's simply Wall Street. You can use the free version. I always, as you guys all know, I like to always bring free resources to everybody, and they kind of like put it into a mold model mapping for each of these. And so I'll pull up, let's say, for example, I'll pull up Amazon. So I'll pull up Amazon. And as you can see, they have a lot of future value here, a lot of past, and a lot of health, strong health. But then, as you can see, dividend here, non-existent. Value, pretty much non-existent. And what it does is it builds some pretty good stuff here. So for example, when you look at it across, so if we come to valuation, so its current price is actually undervalued for Amazon. So essentially where they're placing the fair price of Amazon would be at a fair value of $4,793. So that's where they say that it's about right as it pertains to its value. And it does pretty much an analysis check. So, and each one kind of like represents exactly where it is. So PE versus industry and whatnot. Same thing goes for the reason why they got nothing, because the company doesn't provide anything on the dividend and comparing it against its market competitors. And then there's some other things like, for example, financial health, where it talks about its assets over its liabilities and telling you exactly like, okay, hey, well, what's its debt to equity? And as you can see, equity is significantly high versus essentially its debt. And then, of course, if you wanted to, you can actually pull up cash equivalents, which therein brings in a whole nother beast, which is about 73.27 billion for Amazon. And then, of course, you can go even further and looking at its balance sheet and seeing what's there. And as you can see, the debt sits there at about 33. And of course, like, again, you can keep going on looking at its past performance, looking at its future growth, and all those things you can kind of like put into a simple model form and essentially be able to kind of like quickly go through a stock and say, all right, well, this is pretty cool. for me to check out and for me to like just do some simple vetting of the company. So something there. I will drop that right now into the chat for everybody. Simply wall.st. So simply Wall Street. I think that everybody should like it. Hopefully that you guys enjoy it. Also, don't sleep on some of the other tools in which that have been given, like bar chart and Zacks. Great resources as well.
Use them all.
Yes. I'm surprised that nobody asked me about Ford versus Tesla. Or
that was not in here. I mean, it could have been. Let me see. Nope. Is there something you want to say?
Just gonna say, 12 hours later and 20,000, vehicle, orders versus somebody getting about 200,000. I think that says a lot. You only got 10% of what Tesla got in pre-order. So, and it's kind of funny that also we got our I'm also going to go out there and say, I'm kind of rubbed a little bit the wrong way. I'm going to be real. I'm going to just, can I be in my feelings just for a little bit?
Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Because I feel like, honestly, I've let Tesla sit on Dr. Market's couch, and I've also, have some other patients that are coming to my couch. But I feel like I should go on the couch.
Okay.
And I think that, where I see it, a lot of folks ask me, what am I doing when I look down? Sometimes I like to play with plastic from the bottle, so don't judge me. So I'm feeling some kind of way because our president is ultimately talking about like, okay, hey, let's, go after like, bring EVs and, be competitive with the rest of the world. When you have a company that was started right there in California and is like literally taking the entire world by storm, and that is literally just like continue to do this. Now, for anybody that knows, it's like, if you don't know by now, then yes, I'm a huge fan of Tesla. I just am, because of the fact that the thesis and everything else fits. And on top of that, it's like, I don't see anybody else out there that can do what it does. So it's like, it kind of felt weird, but it was interesting because, shout outs to Che, because he mentioned something that was very interesting. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of the folks that represent the old guard, in which that something like that is going to appeal to them. Mm-hmm. Versus, say, for example, the younger generation, it's like that's going to be looked at as meh. I mean, you mean to tell me for a fully loaded vehicle, I'm going to pay $90,000 to literally only have 300 miles of range? Or the fact that, no full self-driving, none of that included, none of that. And then on top of that, it's like, it's not even going to give me the best of the best as it pertains to performance. And that's what I'm paying for. I'm going to be paying pretty much the amount, the equivalent of a down payment for a home.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact, I get it, that there's going to be subsidies and everything else, because they're definitely going to be in line for those tax credits. And that's going to be interesting, because I wonder, are they going to give that same type of energy that they gave to Tesla when Ford gets those tax credits when it comes to those, subsidies and everything else for their vehicles, all the way up to their roads, 200,000 vehicles. So for me, it's just like, it's kind of interesting because of the fact that, honestly, it just doesn't make any sense that if we're talking about the most innovative companies, it's not the companies in which that have been around since the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. And we're starting to see that over and over and over again, that those companies, I mean, they're here, but, I don't see China afraid of Ford. I don't see Germany afraid of Ford. I mean, I don't even see the UK afraid of Ford. So it's like, now it's like, all right, well, we're looking at Ford and GM, and it's like, they don't represent the masses. I mean, okay, I'm gonna be real. The Ford Mustang Mach-E is trash. I'm just gonna say that. Mm-hmm. I have a neighbor that lives in my neighborhood that has a Mach-E, and they're actually getting ready to they're in the process of trying to return the vehicle back to Ford.
Why?
And the reason being is because of the fact that they've had to have that vehicle, worked on twice, and it's a brand new vehicle. Now I understand that happens with some of the new batches of stuff, like Tesla went through that, but you have to take it into consideration that Ford has been around for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. So if anybody should have it down packed, A1 quality, then it should be Ford or GM, and that's not the case. So honestly, it's like, that's where it's like, I really, really struggle with looking at, what is it that when people say that, hey, we're starting to see a stiff amount of competition coming in from other players. The part where it's like it can or it can like power the home for 10 days. That's cute. But I'd love to see that in real world action.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see that. I mean, that's just a matter of time until everybody else accepts that standard. I think that, like I said, that there's a lot there in which that there's a narrative that's being pushed and making Ford essentially relevant. And they're going to probably try to bump the stock all the way up to, I'm probably guessing about 16, 17. But when you just saw the presentation yesterday, it honestly looked like, that they don't even care about who their consumers are. I don't even think they even know who their consumers are. And that to me is a very scary sight when you see that, hey, a company doesn't know their customer. That, it's like, yeah, you're focused towards American buyers.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's just like, all right, well, American buyers are also buying Teslas. And then what happens when you now have millennial generation as well as Gen Z? And, how many Gen Zers are going to be out there driving Ford F-150s?
No. It's that whole good old boys club kind of vibe, for sure.
I mean, like, for real, fam, you wear a salmon color shirt with some khakis and a blazer. Like, people still do that.
I don't know where they don't do that over here. Okay. I don't know where they do that at, but I feel you, Mark. It is disappointing, and it's almost like, dang, man, we could have. Why would you not want to go with the leader? And if America is going to be competitive in leading the front of innovation when it comes to, environmental, like huge environmental implications, just even brand wise, Ford is not it. Like, why wouldn't you go with the 100% EV company as opposed to
a company that's saying that they're trying to literally move their entire fleet
exactly
from internal combustion engine to electric. My thing is that, and this is where it comes into the part where it's just like, we got to be different. And I'm hoping, like, this is the reason why we do the Come Up series, like, at least for me, is because of the fact that I'm hoping for a different outcome versus maybe the people that have walked, before me, is the fact that, we revered folks once upon a time who were intelligent, who literally challenged the status quo, who were innovative, who literally brought forth significant change. And now we've gone from revering those individuals where we look up to them to now it's like we belittle them.
mm-hmm.
We belittle them, or we essentially muzzle them. And then it's like all of a sudden it's like when what they were saying was facts all along, then it's like, all right, well, we want to give them some kudos and everything else, and maybe their day in the sun, versus saying, okay, hey, well, what is it that we can learn here, and what else can you teach us? And it's just sad because it's like, so much better. And it's like, it's like, it doesn't take that much for us to be competitive. It just takes a matter of the fact that it's like, okay, hey, are we looking to fight little battles here, or are we looking to win the ultimate war, which is innovation? We didn't scare so easily also, when it came to innovation either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, this is tough, and I see this because of the fact that, as a person who, I've had the opportunity, and, I'm humbly thankful for having the privilege to be able to, invest in a lot of innovative companies. But it's just amazing. And how is it that, we got to this point where it's like, we as a people were so afraid of it. Whereas it's like, if you really think about innovation and everything else that surrounds it, like really, when you really take a step back to look at it, this is our birthright.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a place, and innovation is a place in which that all of us, we should be thriving, not looking down against, not being scared of, but ultimately thriving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I mentioned the quote, like, if your dreams don't scare you, you're thinking too small.
Yeah. Well, not to end the note on Total Buzz or in the show on Total Buzzkill, but
No.
I'm glad you
Well,
got
I do have an announcement though.
Oh, what's the announcement?
Saturday, there's a new episode coming from Sessions.
Wait a minute, Sessions.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the IG live?
Nope, Sessions with Dr. Market.
Oh, I didn't realize you called it that. I just been calling it Dr. Market.
That's fair. Maybe I need to get a stethoscope or something like that, or maybe just something like a lab coat or something.
Yo, I have to tell you something about lab coat.
Okay. Is this for another time?
Yeah, it is for another time. When you said that, it made me think of something. Yeah, I got to tell you something about that. So you said Saturday?
Yep, Saturday.
Alrighty.
Don't worry, y'all. I'm not buzzkill. It's like more so that's just my thoughts. Like it says, I know it feels kind of somber, but it's just more so in the sense that it's like I dreamed a dream that ultimately that essentially that people who looked a lot like me embraced innovation and also helped like influence and bring on the innovation. So, honestly, don't worry, y'all. It's I'm good.
Hold up. I need to make sure that this question was answered. Hold on. Before we go. Oh, do you have any words for the June quad witch? Someone wants to know what's the forecast on what the June quad witching will look like, especially after the strong sell-off we've been witnessing in the market these past couple of months.
I mean, if anything, you just like price in a plus or minus of about a few, like maybe about anywhere from 0.5% to 2%, plus or minus. I mean, honestly, it depends not only just on what's happening in quad witching, but more so in the sense of what's happening economically. And then on top of that, what's happening within the bond market. You should definitely be looking at, we should really be looking at, what are some of the economic data points that are coming out between now and June 18th, because they will definitely help dictate the bond. The bond market was down today. And essentially it's like I said, watch the futures market, watch the bond market. It kind of gives you a good gauge of where is it that we're going moving forward. If we see like maybe a few small points here and there, that's nothing major. But from the way I see it, it looks like tech wants to essentially go on a rally run. It's been beaten up. For those of you that want to look at a new technical analysis point, instead of just looking at RSI, look at something called the stochastic RSI. It can give you some good insight as well. And then you can kind of run that as a back test towards some of the data that are on the charts. So you can use that as another point of entry. But outside of that, I mean, honestly, I would really say look at the economic data that's scheduled to be coming out between now and June 18th, because those will probably play a significant role into where we go, especially as we look at unemployment.
All right. Someone said they're going to buy you the F-150 EV for your birthday.
You buy me an F-150 for my birthday, I guarantee you it will be either sold or donated off to somewhere else, but probably most likely sold. And then ultimately the proceeds go towards some type of organization. So if you're going to do that, then you may as well just put the money towards a nonprofit or help build your community.
All right, Mark. Weekend vibes. I'm already on it. I'm about to.
No, I could see it. I saw that lean back. I was like, yo, when you lean back in the chair, I was like, oh, okay, that's where we at.
I got in town, I got guests here from, we got parties, cocktail party. We're living life this weekend, y'all. Kicking it. And I'm a DJ now, so on the one and the one, not one and twos, on the one.
Oh, so you're gonna be jamming on the one? Okay, I see you. Let's do it. Yeah. All right. Well, Jolyn, you ready to get this weekend started?
I am. It's already started.
I was thinking about having a small little after party on Instagram. What do you think? Or should I save that for next week?
Your call. I thought you had plans after this.
I do.
I think you should honor your plans.
Okay, I'll honor my plans. You see, guys, I really want to come hang out with y'all and, They won't
I'm
let
just
me.
saying, if you never said that, then I would be like, oh yeah, go for it. But you already made plans.
Okay. Well, you guys could possibly check me out on Twitter tomorrow because I may be on Twitter Spaces sometime during the day after I'm done with the high school kids, which are, be aware. They're coming. They're almost here.
They ready.
All right, Jolyn, I'll see you next week. Or actually, I'll probably talk to you tomorrow, but on the Come Up series, I'll see you next week. But until next time, I am Mark Monroe.
And I'm Jolyn GC in the place to be, only rocking with EVs.
Oh, okay. Well, there it is. And this has been Hot Take Thursday. We will see y'all next week. Have a great weekend and enjoy the show in which that we have prepared for you all on Saturday.